Hungarian forest night. The world holds its breath. A silence stretches across the black pine forests east of Budapest, the kind of silence that only exists where something ancient has claimed the land as its own. No birds, no insects, just the slow groan of centuries-old wood and the distant sound of something wet moving through the dark. Then the sky splits open. A streak of violent orange tears across the clouds, not a shooting star, not a satellite burning up on re-entry. Something heavier, something alive. The meteor hits the earth like a god's fist, punching a crater 40 feet deep into the forest floor, scattering trees like matchsticks across a quarter-mile of scorched woodland. The impact shakes the bones of every creature within 3 kilometers. A Lycan patrol, 5 warriors mid-shift, caught between human and wolf form, hits the ground instinctively. Their commander, a broad-shouldered soldier named Radu, raises one clawed hand, signaling stillness. His yellow eyes scan the smoke. His nostrils flare. Radu, low in Hungarian, don't move. The crater breathes. Not steam from the impact, something else. Something that moves with intention, curling out from the rock like black smoke that can't decide if it's liquid or gas. It pours across the forest floor slowly, feeling its way across roots and soil, stretching toward the heat signatures of the patrol like fingers reaching for warmth. One of the younger Lycans, Bela, barely 20, eyes still carrying that wide human fear underneath the gold, takes a half-step backward. The smoke stops. It snaps toward him with the speed of a striking cobra. Radu, Bela, run. Too late. The symbiote engulfs Bela from the feet up in under 3 seconds. His scream becomes muffled, then stops entirely. For a terrible moment, nothing moves. Then the black mass begins to convulse. It reshapes itself, hunched, massive, the silhouette of something that has no right to exist. Limbs too long, a jaw that unhooks too wide, eyes that open like wounds, white, blank, furious. The Venom-Lycan hybrid stands in the crater smoke and screams, not with Bela's voice, not with Venom's alien hunger alone, but with both at once, layered, discordant, a sound that makes Radu's teeth ache in his skull. Radu runs. He is the fastest Lycan in Victor's Eastern Regiment. He has survived a dozen death-dealer ambushes, a silver-tipped crossbow bolt through the shoulder, and 40 years of a war that should have killed him 100 times over. He doesn't make it 50 yards. The tunnels smell like stone, wet fur, and old blood. Gas lamps throw amber light across low ceilings. A dozen Lycans cluster around Ozas, older, scarred, the quiet authority that holds this pack together in the field while the political games play out above. 2 survivors of Radu's patrol sit wrapped in blankets, shaking. Myra, the only woman among them, keeps wiping her hands on her thighs even though they're already clean. She's been doing it since they arrived. Nobody points it out. Ozas, tell me again, exactly. Myra, it came from the rock, the meteor. It was like smoke, but it had weight. It moved like it was thinking. And when it touched Bela, she stops, wipes her hands again. He didn't fight it, that's what I can't stop seeing. For 1 second, I thought he was going to fight it, and then he just stopped. Like something in him said yes. Ozas, and the shape it became. Myra, like us, bigger, wrong. The way a drawing of a wolf is wrong when a human does it from memory and they've never actually seen one. Every proportion too much. The teeth they weren't in the right place. It had tongues. A long silence. Ozas, quietly plural. Myra, plural. Ozas stares at the wall. Someone at the back of the tunnel starts to pray under their breath in a language even the other Lycans don't recognize. Ozas turns to his second, a lean Lycan named Fane, and speaks low enough that Myra won't hear. Ozas, find it before the vampires do. And feign if you find it and it recognizes you, don't engage. Run. Come back. We need to know what it is before we decide what to do about it. Feign, and if it already knows what we are. Ozas doesn't answer. He doesn't have one. 3 vampires are dead. Not drained, Lycans drain their kills sometimes in the old territorial way, and the covens know that signature. These are dissolved. 3 of Victor's eldest made soldiers who have walked the earth for 2 centuries, reduced to outlines on the cobblestone and a residue that looks like black oil but moves slightly in the rain. As if it's still hungry. As if it hasn't finished. Erika, a vampire field agent, crouches over the nearest outline and brings her lantern closer. She's been a death dealer for 60 years. She has seen Lycans tear vampires apart with their bare hands. She has seen silver-laced blade work leave burns across undead flesh that never fully heal. She has seen the aftermath of Victor's worst rages. Yes. He has never seen this. Her hand hovers over the residue. It pulses once in the light. She pulls her hand back. Erika, into her earpiece command, we have a new problem. Marble floors, chandeliers burning with cold blue flame, maps of the city covering 3 walls, every Lycan tunnel marked in red, every safe house flagged, every sighting time-stamped. The kind of war room that has been updated every single night for 300 years. Kiran, a senior elder who has outlived 4 of Victor's generals, stands at the head of the room with his hands clasped behind his back and his eyes fixed on the newest entry on the board. A sketch one of the surviving patrol members managed before losing their mind entirely. Something black, something with a face like a wound. Around him, a dozen death dealers stand at attention. They are beautiful and still and utterly, genuinely afraid, which is the most frightening thing in the room. Kiran, 9 kills confirmed in the last 36 hours, 3 of ours, 6 Lycans. Pattern of movement, northeast to southwest, roughly following the river. It isn't hiding, it isn't even being strategic. It simply moves and things die. Death Dealer 1. The Lycans are saying it came from the sky. Kiran. Dry, precise. The Lycans say a great many things. Most of them are wrong. Some of them are true. This one appears to fall in the second category. He pauses. The residue left at the sites doesn't match anything in the archive. Not Lycan, not vampire, not human, not any documented species. Whatever it is, it arrived from somewhere else, and it has been feeding on both sides indiscriminately. Death Dealer 2, then it's not part of the war. Kiran, no, he turns from the board, which means it has no allegiances, no politics, no ancient grievance to exploit. It cannot be reasoned with, negotiated with, or turned. It simply hunts. Beat, send for Seleni. Seleni rides without headlights. She doesn't need them. The motorcycle cuts through the pre-dawn dark on instinct, decades of hunting in these woods. These roads, this particular quality of Hungarian night have written themselves into her muscle memory like a second skeleton. She knows every turn before she takes it. Her coat catches the air. Her silver eyes watch everything at once. She has been briefed. 3 times. The briefings got shorter each time because there was less to say, not more. Every new piece of information came back to the same conclusion. We don't know what it is. That had never happened before. Not to them. Not in 3 centuries of meticulous, obsessive intelligence work. The covens had files on everything. Every Lycan bloodline, every pack movement, every full moon pattern stretching back to before the written word. They had files on human hunters who didn't know werewolves were real. They had files on each other. There was no file on this. Seleni, V.O. Curran told me to investigate, to gather information, assess the threat, and report back before engaging. He said it with the calm of someone who has sent 1,000 soldiers into the dark and learned to make peace with the fact that some of them don't come back. Beat, I've always been better at the engaging part. Seleni moves through the trees with her guns out, one loaded with silver habit and one loaded with ultraviolet rounds, which she has learned is at least effective against most things that shouldn't exist. Both feel inadequate in a way she doesn't let herself examine too closely. The crash site is 48 hours old and already wrong. The trees around the crater aren't just scorched from the impact. The bark has been carved not by claws, not by tools, by something extruding itself against the wood and leaving a texture like stretched skin wherever it passed. Seleni runs 2 fingers along one of the marks and feels the faint warmth still radiating from it. Whatever made this was hot. Whatever made this was large. She moves deeper. The tunnels the Lycans use crisscross under this section of forest. She knows 3 entrances within 100 meters. But something has been down there that isn't Lycan and isn't Coven. The earth around 2 of the entrances has been sealed, not collapsed, sealed methodically, with the same black material that coats the trees, sealed from the inside. Seleni, quietly into Calm's command, I'm at the 2nd entry point. Something has been nesting in the Lycan tunnels, not Lycans. Pause, the organic matter from the briefing reports it's here. Significant quantity. Whatever was in that meteor has been using the tunnel system as a network. KIRAN, through earpiece for hunting. Seleni, no, for learning. It's been moving through every passage, like it's mapping the territory, like it wants to understand the war before it picks a side. A long pause. KIRAN, Seleni, come back. Seleni, I need to go deeper. KIRAN, that was not a suggestion. She takes out her earpiece, sets it on a rock, keeps walking. This chamber Preda. Test the war. Predates the Coven. Predates the oldest Lycan alive. The stonework is Roman, maybe older. The kind of place that was holy to something that no longer exists and then was forgotten so completely that even the forgetting was forgotten. Someone has redecorated. Black webbing covers every wall, every column, every surface, drawn out in geometric patterns that make Seleni's eyes slide off them when she tries to focus. In the center of the chamber, a mass of something dark and organic breathes slowly. It's asleep, or something that looks like sleeping, the way a hurricane looks calm from certain angles. Seleni stands at the entrance for 4 full seconds. She counts them. Then she moves forward. The breathing stops. Venom, voice filling the chamber, layered, double-tracked. A thing speaking through a thing through a thing. You are not the wolf things. Seleni, hand on her weapon, not drawing, not yet no. Venom, you are not the pale things either. Not exactly. Seleni, I'm something in between. The mass shifts, reorganizes, becomes something vertical and enormous, the Bella shape beneath it still vaguely visible if you know where to look, the way a body is still vaguely visible beneath a river. Its white eyes open like coins. The tongue, one of the tongues, samples the air with the patience of something that has crossed between stars and understands waiting. Venom, almost curious, you smell like death, old death, chosen death. Seleni, I'm a death dealer. Beat, I was sent to find out what you are. Venom, we know what we are. It takes 1 step forward and the floor cracks under it. Do you? Seleni doesn't move. Every trained instinct in her body is screaming to raise the gun. She doesn't raise the gun. She has stood in front of enough monsters to know which ones are performing threat and which ones are simply being what they are. This one isn't performing. Seleni, you've been killing both sides, Lycans and vampires. Venom, we have been eating. The voice drops, becomes almost reflective. This world has many apex predators. We find that interesting. Seleni, the wolf things, the Lycans, you bonded with one of them. Why? You could have taken a human. A long pause. When Venom speaks again, there is something almost like grief in the layered voice, buried under too many layers to read cleanly. Venom, the host we found, he was dying, alone. The war had left him in the forest with silver burning through his blood. He would have died in pain in the dark. Beat, we do not choose hosts who are well. We choose hosts who are at the edge. He said yes before he understood what yes meant. Seleni, and now. Venom, now we are something new. He understands now. Some of him is still in here. The part of him that was angry, the part that was hungry. The white eyes fix on Seleni with the full weight of an alien intelligence that has catalogued thousands of species across dozens of worlds. We did not come to your war. Your war was here when we arrived, but we have learned the shape of it. The vampires keep the Lycans as slaves and call it order. The Lycans fight to be free and call it revolution. Both sides are ancient, both sides are exhausted, both sides are wasting. Seleni, quietly, and you're offering what exactly? Balance. Venom, the massive jaws open, and even the darkness seems to lean away from what lives inside them. No. We are offering to eat the ones who won't stop. Silence. Seleni lowers her gun. Not because she isn't afraid, she is. In the deep cold way she's only been afraid a handful of times in her long, bloody life. She lowers the gun because she is beginning to understand that this thing isn't her enemy. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Seleni, the elders will want you destroyed. Venom, almost amused, they are welcome to try. Seleni, I'm not going to tell them where you are. Venom, studying her, why? Seleni, because I've spent 300 years fighting a war that was built on lies. She meets the white eyes without flinching. And I'm very tired of being used as the weapon of people who don't deserve weapons. The chamber breathes. The webbing on the walls pulses once, slowly, like a heartbeat deciding whether to continue. Venom, the Lycan in us, what is left of him, knew your name. Bella, he saw you once, years ago, in the tunnels south of the city. You spared a young Lycan who was too frightened to fight back. Seleni says nothing. Venom, he remembers that. We remember that. Beat, go back to your pale halls, death dealer. Tell them you found nothing. And when the war reaches a point where both sides would rather burn the world than admit the other has the right to exist in it. Seleni, you'll be here. Venom, we will be hungry. Seleni walks back through the tunnels. She doesn't look behind her. She retrieves her earpiece from the rock where she left it. She listens to Curran asking where she is, asking what she found, asking her to check in, his controlled voice carrying 24 hours of Rely contained panic beneath it. She presses the earpiece in. Seleni, into comms, nothing. The tunnels were abandoned. The residue is dissipating. I think whatever came from the meteor burned out. She walks back toward the highway. Behind her, deep in the earth, something massive breathes slowly in the dark, patient, alien, ancient in a way that makes the 3-century war above it look like an argument between children. It waits. A text card appears over black. In the months that follow, 6 high-ranking vampire elders disappear without a trace. 12 Lycan warlords are found dissolved in their own tunnels. The ones who remain are the ones who wanted peace. Nobody investigates. Seleni investigates. She already knows what she'll find. She doesn't tell anyone. Danube Riverbank, Budapest 3:14 a.m. The river doesn't sleep. It moves through the city like a vein through a wrist, dark, purposeful, indifferent to everything happening on either bank. On the east side, a warehouse district. On the west, old bridges and older stone. And somewhere between both, moving through the water itself, something black and massive and utterly silent. It surfaces without a sound. The symbiote has learned that sound is information. Sound tells prey where you are. In the 6 weeks since the crash, Venom has been learning, not in the way animals learn through repetition and conditioning, but in the way the best predators learn, by understanding systems. The war between the vampires and the Lycans is a system. It has patterns. It has schedules. It has routines baked into it by 3 centuries of habitual violence. Venom has read the whole thing like a map. A vampire patrol, 2 soldiers, young by Coven standards, perhaps 80 years old each, crosses the East Bridge at its standard time, every 47 minutes. They have been doing this rotation since before either of them was turned. The muscle memory of security work. The comfortable boredom of soldiers who have never had to question whether they were the apex predator in the room. They are in the middle of the bridge when the darkness peels off the underside of the railing and comes up behind them. No chase, no struggle, no sound. Where 2 vampires walked, there is now a residue and a shape crouched at the railing, breathing slowly, integrating. The symbiote extends one massive arm over the railing and lets something black and thick drip into the Danube below. It watches the ripples. Venom, to itself, voice barely above the sound of the water, faster than the last ones. The blood is different here, older, denser. A pause, something that isn't quite satisfaction. We are becoming something this world has never metabolized. It drops from the bridge into the water without a splash and is gone. Fane stands over a tunnel junction that used to connect to 3 different safe houses. 2 of the passages are sealed with black organic matter, dense, hardened, warm to the touch even now. The 3rd passage is open, but the walls along it have been carved with the same sliding skin texture Seleni found at the crash site. With him, Ozas, studying the walls with the careful expression of a man adding information to a threat assessment he is rapidly losing control of. Fane, it's been using our tunnels as a navigation system. Every time we find a new sealed section, it's not blocking us out. It's reshaping the network, shortening routes between hunting grounds. Ozas, it's optimizing. Fane, it's been learning our infrastructure for 6 weeks and building on top of it. He touches the organic matter on the wall and pulls his hand back quickly, not from pain but from revulsion. Ozas. The vampires have silver. We have numbers. What do we have against something that reads our maps and then rewrites them? Ozas is quiet for a long time. Ozas, the same thing we always have against things bigger than us. He turns from the wall, we run, we regroup, we find out what hurts it, and then we bring enough of it to matter. Fane, and if nothing hurts it. Ozas, something always hurts it. Everything has a threshold. The question is whether we find it before it decides we're more useful as food than as a war to observe. He looks once more at the black walls. The organic matter pulses very faintly in the dark, like a heartbeat, like something still listening. Venom stands in an open lot between 2 collapsed factory buildings and does something it hasn't done since the night of the crash. It stops, fully stops, and it takes inventory. The alien symbiote has a memory that operates differently from any organic intelligence it has encountered. It doesn't remember linearly. It remembers in layers. Every host it has ever bonded with leaves a stratum, a geological record of consciousness pressed flat and permanent inside the mass. Most of those memories are from other worlds, other wars, Other species that thought they were the last and most important thing in whatever ecosystem they owe. See Cupid. The Bella stratum is close to the surface, still warm, still breathing in a sense. Venom, internal Bella's voice barely, speaking from inside the mass. I can feel the city, every cobblestone I ever ran across, every tunnel I knew by smell. Venom, its own voice layered, we are using you. You know this. Bella, quiet, I know. Beat, I agreed. I'd do it again. I was dying alone in the dark with silver burning holes through my stomach, and you were the only warm thing within 100 meters. Beat, is that pathetic? Venom, it is honest. We prefer honest things. Dishonest things are harder to integrate. A pause in the internal exchange. Venom tilts its massive head and looks at its own hands, claws now, long and black, capable of articulating with a precision that Bella's Lycan form never had. It extends one and drags it experimentally across the factory wall. The concrete comes away in a clean line. The claw has been naturally hardening over the past weeks, molecular density increasing as the symbiote feeds on supernatural blood and integrates its nutritional compounds. Vampire armor, the old alchemical kind, layered silveral, plate that the death dealers wear under their coats, couldn't stop it anymore. Venom had tested that 3 nights ago, almost apologetically. Bella, are we going to kill everything? Venom, we are going to kill the things that refuse to stop. It retracts the claw, watching the concrete dust settle. The female, the death dealer with the old death smell. She chose not to report us. Bella, Seleni. Venom, she is making a decision she doesn't fully understand yet. Bella, she's made decisions like that before. There's a reason the Covens both fear her and need her. She sees the shape of things before other people see the parts. Venom, then she has already seen the shape of us. Bella, quietly, what shape are we? A very long pause. Venom, we are the thing the war created by being a war long enough. Every system of violence eventually produces something it cannot control. We are that something. The white eyes open wide in the dark. We are the consequence. The deep archive is not on any map the death dealers carry. It exists below the main coven, below the war rooms, below the oldest wine cellars. A chamber cut into bedrock during the 1st century of the war, filled with things the elders decided were too dangerous to use and too dangerous to destroy. Kiran stands before an iron cabinet the height of a man, flanked by 2 scholars, vampires old enough to remember when the archive was last opened, which is to say they are very old and very unhappy to be here. Scholar 1. The etheric seals were developed during the Lycan rebellion of the 14th century. They were designed to bind a creature of extreme supernatural density to a specific geographic location. They have never been used on anything that wasn't, at base, biological in origin. We have no empirical data on. Kiran, will they work? Scholar 1, pause, we don't know. Kiran, will the resonance rounds work? Scholar 2. The high-frequency silver cartridges were designed to disrupt Lycan bone density at a cellular level. If this creature is partly Lycan. Kiran, it is more than partly Lycan. It is also something we have no classification for. Will they work? Scholar 2. Longer pause against something that regenerates by feeding on supernatural matter, possibly, if fired in sufficient volume before it adapts. The critical variable is time. The creature has demonstrated adaptation cycles of approximately, he checks his notes, 72 hours per new stimulus, which means Kiran, which means if we deploy the resonance rounds and they don't kill it within 3 days, it will have developed resistance and we will have wasted our only advantage. He turns from the cabinet, And for the first time in 40 years of watching him work, his second-in-command Petra sees something move behind his eyes that looks like fear. Then we don't use them until we're certain. We need to lure it somewhere contained, somewhere we control the variables. Petra, and how do we lure something that moves faster than we can track and reads our patterns before we execute them? KIRAN, very quietly we use the one variable it hasn't accounted for. He looks at Petra steadily. We use Seleni. We tell her the truth that it's evolving faster than we can contain it, and that if she doesn't help us end it, it will wipe out both species within the year. And then we let her decide. Petra, she lied to you about finding nothing. KIRAN, I know she lied. Petra, you've known for weeks. KIRAN, a thin, ancient smile. She's my best soldier, Petra, not my only spy. I know she found it. I know she let it go. And I know she had reasons. The smile fades. I need to know if her reasons will hold when the stakes become clear, or if she's already chosen a side she doesn't fully understand yet. The cathedral has been abandoned for decades, not by accident, but by design. 3 centuries ago, both sides of the war agreed, in one of their rare tacit arrangements, that certain neutral spaces would exist throughout the city. Places neither side would use, hunt in, or claim. The cathedral was one of them. It became, over time, a landmark of the truce's architecture, a building that meant this far, no further, even when everything else about the arrangement collapsed. The cathedral's stones are old enough to remember when the war was young. The stained glass has all gone, broken, or stolen, leaving the window frames open to the night like empty eye sockets. The nave is 40 meters of uninterrupted shadow. The choir loft has partially collapsed. The altar is still standing, marble, the gold long gone, the stone carved with imagery that predates Christianity in this region by 1,000 years. Something has been sleeping here. Seleni finds the signs before she reaches the entrance, the same way she always finds signs, which is to say she wasn't looking for them and they found her first. The organic texture on the exterior stone, the webbing in 3 of the window frames, heavy and architectural, the way spiders web a space they intend to occupy for a long time. The darkness inside that is slightly thicker than darkness ought to be. She stops at the door. Seleni, V.O. Curran called me in 2 days ago. He was careful about it, laid out the intelligence, the kill count, the evolution rate, the archive weapons. Everything precise and professional and slightly too calm, the way he gets when he's genuinely frightened and has decided that the only response to genuine fear is perfect control. He told me the creature needed to be stopped. He told me it was becoming something that neither side could survive. And then he looked at me with those 400-year-old eyes and said, "You've been protecting it. I understand why. Now I need you to stop." She pushes the cathedral door open. Seleni, V.O. Kant. He wasn't wrong about any of it. The creature had killed 23 of ours and 17 Lycans in 6 weeks. Not soldiers sent to hunt it, soldiers going about their routines who simply had the misfortune to be in its path. And with every feeding, the reports from the field described something larger, something more complex, something that was building toward a shape we didn't have words for yet. Beat, he wasn't wrong, but he also wasn't telling me everything. Which meant one of us was going to have to make a choice that the other one wouldn't sanction. Beat, as usual. She walks into the cathedral. The nave is enormous and perfectly silent, and she is not alone in it. She knows this before she sees anything, the same instinct that has kept her alive for 3 centuries, the read-the-room sense that every veteran soldier develops or dies not developing. The air has weight in here. The darkness has attention. Seleni, to the dark, I know you're here. I can feel the temperature difference. You run warmer than this space should be. A pause. Then from somewhere near the collapsed choir loft, The darkness organizes itself. Venom, voice coming from 3 directions at once. Death dealer. You came alone. Seleni, yes. Venom, the pale one sent you. Seleni, they asked me to come. It's not the same thing. She moves further into the nave, boots on stone, every echo mapped. I want to talk to you. Before anything else happens, I want to talk to you. Can we do that? Venom, closer now. It has moved without sound and she didn't track it, which is the most frightening thing that has happened so far. Talk. Yes. We have been watching you think for 2 days. You are conflicted. We find conflict in intelligent creatures interesting. It means they are weighing things of approximately equal value. What are you weighing? Seleni, whether you're still the thing I let go 6 weeks ago, or whether you've become something I have to stop. Venom, from directly above she looks up and it is on the ceiling, vast, calm, watching her with those coin-white eyes. And what has changed? Seleni, 23 of my people, 17 Lycans, and an evolution rate that my elders say will produce something neither side survives by year's end. She holds the gaze. You told me you would eat the ones who wouldn't stop. Those kills, were they all people who wouldn't stop? A very long silence. When Venom drops from the ceiling slowly, landing on the nave floor with a weight that shakes the remaining glass in its frames, it is looking at her with an expression she cannot read, which is new. She can read everything. She has spent 3 centuries learning to read monsters. Venom, some of them. An admission, the voice is quieter. Some of them were simply in the path. We were hungry. The hunger is something shifts in the mass, a discomfort, the bella stratum surfacing. The hunger is not always precise. Seleni, that's the problem. Venom, we know. Seleni, then you understand why I'm here. Venom, we understand why you were sent. The white eyes narrow. We do not yet understand why you came. Seleni looks at the creature for a long moment. Then she draws both guns. Seleni, because I owe you a fair fight. You didn't have to tell me about Bella. You didn't have to remember that I spared a frightened Lycan years ago. You chose to. That means there's still something in there that chooses. She raises the weapons. And I need to know if that something is strong enough to stop the part of you that doesn't. Venom, very softly, this is a test. Seleni, this is a conversation with guns. The fight begins. Not with a lunge or a charge. It begins when Venom moves sideways, fast, faster than anything its mass should allow, and Seleni fires on reflex without thinking. The silver rounds punch through the outer symbiote layer. She sees it, the black mass tearing where the silver touches it, the wound small and immediately closing but there, which means the rounds are doing something, which means she has an upper limit to work with. Venom's tendrils come for her from the left and she goes right, running 3 steps up a column before flipping backward over them, landing in a roll that carries her under a pew before it collapses under a second tendril that would have pinned her to the floor. Stone dust fills the air. A column cracks down the middle. Seleni, firing twice more, tracking the mass as it moves, the resonance rounds. I didn't bring them. Venom, we know. We would have smelled them from outside. Seleni, I brought standard silver, which you can heal from. Venom, with something that isn't quite a smile in it, yes. Seleni, loading a fresh magazine without breaking movement, then you know I didn't come here to kill you. She rolls behind the altar as 3 tendrils hit it simultaneously, marble cracking under the impact. The altar holds old stone, built to last millennia, and even Venom's strength can't immediately shatter something that dense. She uses the half-second the impact buys her to get vertical, plant her feet on the altar's face, and push off hard. She goes up and over the tendrils, firing down into the mass as she clears it. The symbiote shrieks. High, alien, layered. The silver rounds are doing more damage to the central mass. She's been targeting the same point, forcing the healing response to concentrate there rather than distribute. She lands hard on the far side, rolls, comes up with both guns tracking. The mass is breathing differently, faster. Venom, you have been thinking about this fight for 2 days. You have been working out where to shoot. Seleni, 3 centuries of practice. Venom, we have been thinking about this fight for 6 weeks. Seleni has approximately 1 second to process that before the cathedral floor opens. Not literally, but the organic webbing she didn't notice had been spread across the entire nave floor, grips her boots at the same moment. A tendril comes from behind, and she is yanked horizontal and slammed into a wall hard enough to crack the stone and crumple her against it. She hits, she slides. She doesn't lose the guns. She fires twice from the floor, both rounds point blank into the tendril at her ankle, and the limb retracts not in defeat but in consideration. It withdraws slowly, deliberately. The cathedral is still. Seleni gets to her feet. 1 rib, maybe 2. She breathes through it. Her coat is torn through in 4 places. She is absolutely certain that if Venom had been trying to kill her, she would be dead. Venom, standing across the nave still, the white eyes fixed on her. You are very difficult to kill. Seleni, breathing carefully, you held back. Venom, yes. Seleni, why? Venom, because you held back first. The creature tilts its massive head, a gesture she recognizes, the Bella shape beneath the mass, the Lycan habit of reading a room from a slight angle. You said this was a conversation with guns. You were correct. The conversation is, can we coexist? Can the hunger be pointed at things that deserve it? Can a creature like us be trusted with the difference between a soldier following orders and a monster who enjoys the work? The question hangs in the ruined nave for a long time. Stone dust settles. Somewhere in the choir loft, a timber shifts. Seleni, quietly, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And I've lived long enough to know that's the most honest answer I've ever given anything. Venom, the honest answer is what we needed to hear. The mass settles, becomes slightly less enormous, slightly less ready. The elders will not stop sending soldiers. Seleni, no. Venom, we will not stop defending ourselves. Seleni, I know. Venom, then what are we doing here, death dealer? Seleni lowers 1 gun, keeps the other at her side pointed down. Seleni, we're making a decision that will probably destroy both of us and might save everyone else. She meets the white eyes directly. The Vampire Council has weapons in their archive, etheric seals and ray. Sonnance rounds. If they deploy them before you adapt, they have a real chance of binding you long enough to, she stops, to do something that isn't reversible. Venom, you are warning us. Seleni, I'm informing you, there's a difference. Venom, there is not as much of a difference as you think. She takes 1 step forward. It is an extraordinary thing to watch. A single human-shaped figure walking towards something that could unmake her in seconds. Walking with the absolute stillness that only comes from having made a choice so completely that fear has nowhere left to live. Seleni, the Lycans have been pushed back into the tunnel network in the northeastern district. They're regrouping around Ozas, he's one of the reasonable ones. Beat, the council is planning a 3rd night sweep through that sector with a full death dealer regiment. 12 soldiers. They're not there for you. They're using your chaos as cover to press an offensive. A very long silence. Venom, killing Lycans who are not hunting them. Seleni, eliminating a position while the city is distracted. Venom, something shifts in the mass, not rage exactly, but the shape that contains rage when it's deciding whether to be released. Bella's pack runs in that district. Seleni, I know. Venom, what remains of it? Seleni, I know. She holds the gaze. I'm not asking you to be a soldier. I'm not asking you to fight our war for us. I'm asking you to be in that district on the third night and to do what you do, which is to make the people planning that offensive remember there are things more dangerous in this city than old politics. Venom, you want us to scare them. Seleni, I want you to remind them that the war they think they're managing is considerably more complicated than their maps suggest. She holsters the second gun. After that, after this immediate crisis, we figure out the rest. We figure out the hunger and the precision and whether this can work in some form that doesn't end with everyone dead. But not tonight. Tonight, I need a creature that cannot be reasoned with to be in a specific place. Venom, and in exchange. Seleni, in exchange, I don't bring the resonance rounds to our next conversation, and I will find out exactly what Curran is planning with the archive weapons, and I will tell you before he uses them. Beat, that's all I have. That's everything I have. The cathedral breathes. Outside, Budapest continues to be a city, trams, arguments, rain on cobblestone, the ordinary world that has no idea what lives in the spaces between its foundations. Venom, finally, slow, the voice carrying the weight of something old and patient making a decision it will live with permanently. The death dealer makes an alliance with the thing that eats death dealers. Seleni, the death dealer makes an alliance with the thing that eats everything. A beat, and for the first time in the conversation, something almost like a smile, dark and exhausted and absolutely genuine. I've made worse decisions. Ask anyone. Something that lives very deep inside the symbiote mass, something with Bella's voice and Bella's memory makes a sound. Not a word, not quite a laugh, something between them. Venom, third night, the northeastern sector. The white eyes hold hers for one more moment. Do not bring the resonance round, Seleni. We have adapted to 13 stimuli in 6 weeks. We would adapt to those too, and we would not be pleased about the process. Seleni, I know. Venom, we know you know. That is why we are not eating you. She walks back toward the entrance. The damaged nave. The cracked columns and the shattered pews and the altar that held. She doesn't look back, not because she isn't afraid, but because she has decided that looking back at this particular thing would mean something she isn't willing to mean yet. At the door she stops. Seleni, Bella, she doesn't turn around. Is there still enough of him in there to remember what it felt like to want something other than survival? A pause. Venom, very quietly, and this time just barely, the voice has one layer instead of many. He remembers what it felt like to run. Before the war made running a direction instead of a feeling. Before every path led somewhere tactical. He remembers running in the forest when he was first turned, and the world was enormous and fast and full of things that weren't enemies yet. Seleni is quiet for a moment. Seleni, hold on to that. She walks out into the Budapest night. Behind her the cathedral exhales. The darkness settles back into itself. The white eyes close slowly. And in the northeastern district, 3 blocks away, a death dealer regiment is cleaning weapons and sharpening tactics and going over maps, completely certain that the biggest threat in the city has been sent to handle this operation, and everything else is logistics. They are going to have a very educational third night. Text card over black. The third night came. The northeastern sweep was abandoned after the regiment's advance scouts reported in separate transmissions 20 minutes apart the same 2 words, "Don't come." Curran received both transmissions simultaneously. He stood in the war room for a long time. Then he went to the deep archive and stood in front of the iron cabinet. He did not open it, not yet. Seleni's private quarters, Coven's safe house before dawn. The desk is covered in photographs. Not the clinical intelligence file kind. These are field images, pulled from the body cameras of dead death dealers, printed on paper because Seleni doesn't trust anything digital with information she hasn't decided how to classify yet. She has arranged them in a timeline, left to right, 6 weeks of kills, each image showing the aftermath of a Venom encounter, each one slightly wrong in a way that takes a moment to identify. She leans over the third week's images and circles something with a pen. The residue from the early kills was uniform, thick, black, adhesive, leaving a texture like cooling tar. The residue from week 3 onward has a structure to it. Microscopic, but visible if you know what you're looking for. Filaments. Branching lattice patterns in the organic matter. The same architecture that appears in 2 completely different biological systems, vampire neural tissue and Lycan bone marrow. Seleni sets down her pen. Seleni, VO, I've spent 3 centuries studying what kills vampires, what kills Lycans, what the biological difference is between a species that can survive direct sunlight and a species that can regenerate a severed limb in 48 hours. I know this material better than almost anyone alive. Beat. Which is why it took me 3 weeks to accept what I was looking at. Because the alternative, the thing the images were actually showing me, was something I didn't have the architecture to believe yet. She picks up the week 5 photograph, sets it next to week 2, picks up her pen again and draws a line between 2 points. Seleni, VO, Kant. It wasn't just feeding. It was cataloging. Every time Venom killed a vampire, it wasn't only taking energy. It was taking data, incorporating biological information at a molecular level, restructuring its own organic chemistry around the most useful traits from each species it consumed. I've watched viruses do this. I've read about theoretical xenobiology in materials recovered from Coven scholars. But I have never, in 300 years, watched a single organism sit at the intersection of 2 ancient supernatural bloodlines and deliberately choose which parts to keep. She picks up the most recent photograph, week 6. The residue here is almost crystalline in sections, a harder, darker, with a faint iridescence she hadn't noticed until she held it up to the lamp at a specific angle. The filaments aren't branching anymore. They're layering, building upward, building dense. Seleni, aloud quietly to the photograph, what are you becoming? Doctor, Lorenz, is the Coven's oldest living physician, vampire. 260 years practicing medicine across a span of time that watched surgery move from prayer and amputation to precision robotics. He looks at the residue sample Seleni has placed under his microscope and says nothing for a very long time. Dr. Lorenz, this layer here, he points without touching the slide, is vampire neural sheathing, modified, thickened. The conduction velocity in these filaments would be extraordinary, reaction time faster than anything I've documented in a living vampire. Seleni and the outer layer. Dr. Lorenz, adjusting the focus like in periosteum, the membrane that covers bone, but he leans closer. The mineral density is wrong. This isn't like in bone density. This is approximately 3 times like in bone density, which means Seleni, which means it's harder than anything that's supposed to be alive. Dr. Lorenz, harder than our archive-forged steel. He pulls back from the microscope and looks at her directly, which is the thing he does when he's decided to stop being a scientist and start being honest. Seleni, what this sample is describing is an organism that has acquired the fastest nervous system in either species, the most aggressive regenerative biology in either species, and is in the process of building an external structure that will make it effectively impenetrable to conventional weapons. A pause in 6 weeks. Seleni, I know. Dr. Lorenz, if this rate of acquisition continues. Seleni, I know, Lawrence. Dr. Lorenz. Then we have a very short window before the window closes. He covers the sample carefully. There are other changes here I haven't mentioned yet. The outer filament structure, the crystalline layer, it has striations along it that I recognize from one source and one source only. Seleni looks at him. Dr. Lorenz, bat skeletal wing membrane, precalcification stage. He doesn't elaborate, he doesn't need to. Outside the Coven night, 40 minutes later. Seleni is on the phone. Not Coven protocol, her personal line. The one Curran doesn't have the number 2. It rings twice. Ozas. On the other end, cautious. This number shouldn't have my number. Seleni, I got it from a source. You don't want to know which one. A pause that carries the specific texture of a Lycan elder calculating risk in real time. Ozas, death dealer, I assume this isn't social. Seleni, do you know what your tunnels look like in the northeastern sector right now? Ozas, we've been monitoring the organic restructuring. Our scholars think. Seleni, your scholars are behind. She leans against the wall and watches the street, habits of 3 centuries. Its growing wing structures, vampire-derived. If it achieves full wingspan development, it moves in 3 dimensions at vampire speed with Lycan regeneration and armor that our best weapons can't pierce. Beat. How many soldiers can you mobilize in 48 hours? Ozas. Long silence. You're calling to ask a Lycan elder how many fighters I have available. Seleni, I'm calling to tell you that whatever number you give me, it won't be enough unless my people are standing next to yours. Beat. Which means I need you to be ready for a conversation that neither of our councils has sanctioned and will probably result in both of us being disciplined, exiled, or killed, depending on how it goes. Ozas, quietly, you're describing an alliance. Seleni, I'm describing a survival response. There's a difference. Ozas, is there? A pause, and in it, the weight of 3 centuries of war, of sons and daughters lost to silver and fangs, of a species that has never once been offered anything from the vampires that wasn't a leash. Why should I trust you? Seleni, because I'm the one calling you instead of sending soldiers. Beat. And because somewhere in what used to be Bella, there is still a voice that told me your pack runs in the northeastern district. He wanted you warned. I'm warning you. The silence this time is different, longer, warmer in some way that neither of them would ever say out loud. Ozas, 48 hours, but Seleni, this alliance, if that's what we're calling it, it ends when the creature is contained, and then we talk, actually talk, about the war, about what comes after, no weapons on the table. Seleni, no weapons on the table. Ozas, almost to himself, Bella would have found this very funny. Seleni, quietly, I think part of him still does. She ends the call, stands in the Budapest night for a moment, listening to the city breathe. Somewhere out there in the dark, something is growing wings and it doesn't know yet what it will do with them. Budapest. The castle has been a ruin since 1703 and a war staging ground since approximately 15 minutes after that. Both sides have used it over the centuries, never at the same time, always in rotation, the unspoken traffic management of a war too long and too complicated for either side to hold every position permanently. The Great Hall still stands roofless, its walls 4 meters thick. The keep is mostly intact. The approach through the hills is defensible from 3 directions. It is the best ground available. It is the ground they choose. Seleni stands at the center of the Great Hall with Ozas 6 feet to her left, and a dozen senior soldiers from each side arranged in a rough semicircle facing them. The air between the vampire contingent and the Lycan contingent has the specific quality of a fire that hasn't decided whether to go out or spread. Everyone in this room has killed someone standing on the other side of the room. Some of them are looking at the person who killed someone they loved. No one reaches for a weapon. Seleni, I'm going to show you what we're dealing with. After I do, I want no speeches, no history, no grievance. We handle that later. Right now we handle this. She spreads the photographs across a field table, the ones from week 6, the ones showing the crystalline armor, the filaments, the wing membrane striations. The organism has been feeding for 6 weeks. In that time, it has acquired the following: vampire neural conduction, giving it reaction speed beyond anything either side can match. Lycan regenerative biology, accelerated by roughly 400% above baseline Lycan healing. External armor density exceeding our strongest alloys. And she pauses. It is in the process of developing wings. The silence is absolute. A vampire death dealer named Casimir, 50 years in service, lost a brother to a Lycan ambush, has spent half a century being completely certain about what the worst thing in the world is, looks at the photographs for a long time. Casimir, it flies. Seleni, it will, within days based on current development rate. Casimir, then every tactical assumption we've ever made is worthless. Seleni, yes. Ozas, to the room like inside every tunnel network, every underground safe house, every position we've built and held for a century. If it can move in 3 dimensions at vampire speed, he doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. Lycan Captain INES, what kills it? Seleni, currently. Nothing we have at full deployment. The resonance rounds in the Coven archive might disrupt it long enough to. Casimir, long enough to what? Slow it down. Seleni, long enough to talk to it. Every single person in the room looks at her. Seleni, I have spoken with this creature, twice. It is not mindless. It is not an animal. There is an intelligence in it that has been making strategic decisions from the moment it arrived, decisions that, up until the feeding escalated, showed a capacity for restraint that I find significant. Beat, I believe there is still a negotiable version of this situation. I believe the window for that version is closing. And I believe the way through the closing window is to show it that we can stand in the same room without trying to kill each other. She looks around the room, the vampires, the Lycans, the accumulated centuries of violence in this one space, which, I note, we are currently doing. The room breathes. Ozas, and if the window has already closed. Seleni, then we fight, and we bring everything, and we accept that we will lose a great deal of what we bring before it's over. Casimir. After a long pause, I have never in 50 years of service stood next to a Lycan soldier with orders to not kill him. Ozas, dry in spite of everything likewise. Casimir, a beat that is very nearly humor, how do we even? Ozas, we stand between our respective people and the thing that eats everyone. I suggest we start there and improvise. It begins with the sound. Not a roar, Venom doesn't roar, hasn't from the beginning, because roaring is a display behavior for creatures that need to communicate threat through sound, and Venom communicates threat through the simple fact of existing. The sound that announces its arrival is something else. A deep, resonant vibration carried through the castle stone, felt in the back teeth and the sternum, the frequency of something massive moving through the air. Through the air. Seleni sees it first, a shape against the clouds, wider than it should be, the wingspan not bat-like exactly, not anatomically anything that has ever evolved on this planet. The wing membrane catching the ambient city glow from Budapest below and throwing it back as a faint iridescence. The same crystalline quality she saw in the residue photographs. It is beautiful briefly, before it dives. Seleni, into radio, all positions hold. Nobody fires until I give the order. It hits the outer courtyard like a controlled explosion. Stone scatters. The two Lycan soldiers who had been positioned at the courtyard wall are thrown 20 feet and land badly but alive. Venom aimed for the wall, not them. That matters. That is a choice, not an accident. Venom, standing in the crater it made, wings folding back into the mass slowly, the white eyes finding Seleni across the courtyard. You brought an army. Seleni, I brought a conversation with consequences. Venom, looking at the assembled lines, vampires on the keep wall, Lycans at the great hall entrance, Seleni between them, they are standing together. Seleni, yes. Venom, something moves through the mass, the bella stratum, surfacing, reading what it's seeing with the recognition of someone who never thought they'd see it. How? Seleni, mutual terror of you mostly. She takes 3 steps forward into the open ground. But it's a start. Beat, I need you to stop feeding indiscriminately. I need you to hear what I'm about to say and respond to it as the thing I know is still in there. The thing that chooses, that remembers, that told me about a scared kid spared in a tunnel years ago. Beat, can you do that? Venom, slowly, say it. Seleni, you are becoming something that cannot coexist with any other life in this city. Not because of malice, I don't believe you're malicious. Because the hunger doesn't make distinctions and the adaptations don't stop. You have vampire speed, Lycan healing, armor that breaks our weapons, and wings you didn't have 3 days ago. Her voice is very steady. If we let this continue, there is no version of this city, this species, this war that survives you. Not Bikau. See, you want to destroy it, because you'll evolve past the point where the question of wanting matters. Beat, I'm asking you to stop, to hold at what you are, to work with us instead of consuming us. A long silence. The soldiers on the walls and at the entrances are very still. Casimir has his hand on his weapon. Inez has shifted her weight to her forward foot. Ozas is watching Venom with the expression of someone reading a verdict. Venom, the voice is quieter than she has ever heard it. You are asking us to be hungry forever. Seleni, I'm asking you to be hungry precisely, to direct it instead of follow it. Venom, something deep in the mass shifts, not rage, not hunger, something older and stranger. Bella is asking us something also. Seleni, what is he asking? Venom, he is asking us. The voice fragments slightly, the layers separating for a moment, and underneath them something that is very nearly just a young man's voice. He is asking if we can be something that runs towards something instead of away from it. If we can choose a direction that isn't just survival. The silence holds. Then 3 things happen simultaneously. A Lycan soldier on the eastern wall panics. He is young, newly turned, and the thing standing in the courtyard is a nightmare composed of every horror story he was told about what the war could produce if it went wrong enough. He fires. The silver round hits Venom in the left side of the mass. It tears through the armor, slower than silver should, the crystalline layer absorbing part of the velocity, but it hits. And Venom reacts. Not with restraint, with instinct. The tendril comes off the mass faster than anything its size has any right to move and crosses the courtyard and hits the wall below the Lycan soldier, and the wall cracks. Not a targeted strike, a reflex, like touching a flame. The soldier falls backward onto the battlement, unhurt but shaken. And then the courtyard erupts. Every soldier on every wall breaks discipline simultaneously, some firing on Venom, some preparing for a fight that they believe has just begun, some screaming into radios. Casimir drops from the wall with his silver blade drawn and his 300 years of combat instinct overriding 48 hours of tactical agreement. Uneasy shifts full into Lycan form and lunges. Venom expands. The wingspan comes back out, fully deployed now, 40 feet tip to tip, catching the wind from the hills and lifting the creature 6 feet off the ground in a way that forces everyone back. The tendrils come off the mass in 8 directions, not targeting anyone specifically, moving in the sweeping defensive pattern of something protecting a core. Every tendril that hits a wall hits stone, not soldiers. Every surface strike is calculated, devastating to structure, harmless to the people near the structure. It is still choosing. Even in the chaos, it is still choosing. Seleni runs into the middle of the courtyard. Seleni, stop. To her soldiers, all units stand down. Screaming now, 300 years of command in it, stand down. She fires twice into the air. The sound cuts through the chaos. The vampire soldiers halt on trained reflex. The sound of Seleni's guns means authority, means stop, means something has changed. The Lycans halt a half-second later, following Ozas's raised fist. In the sudden near silence, the courtyard breathes. Dust, cracked stone. 12 soldiers in various states of combat readiness. A creature of impossible scale hovering above them with 8 tendrils extended and white eyes that are watching everything at once. Seleni, to Venom, quiet in the silence, don't. Venom, hovering, the wings beating slowly, they fired. Seleni, one soldier, frightened, without orders. She looks up at the white eyes. You know the difference between a frightened kid and a coordinated attack. You've been watching this war long enough to know that difference. A very long pause. The tendrils retract slowly. The wings fold. The creature descends slowly until it stands in the center of the courtyard again. The Bella voice surfaces through the mass, not words, just a sound, something between a sigh and a growl, the sound of something enormous making a decision that costs it. Venom, quietly, the hunger wants to finish this. Seleni, I know. Venom, we are restraining it. Do you understand what that means? What that requires? Seleni, meeting the white eyes. I understand it the way someone understands a cost they haven't finished paying yet. Another long silence. Then Venom does something that no one in the courtyard will be able to fully describe afterward. It contracts, not retreating, not diminishing, but focusing, the mass pulling inward to something closer to the size it was in the early days after the crash. The wings fold away entirely. The armor shimmers and dulls. Not a surrender, a gesture. Venom, the Lycan who fired, he is young. Seleni, yes. Venom, we remember being young in Bella. We remember what fear looked like from the inside when you had no context for the shape of the thing that scared you. A beat. We will not hold him accountable. Ozas. Stepping forward from the entrance slowly, carefully, every move deliberate, that is, he stops, recalibrates, tries again. That is a generous thing. Venom, turning those white eyes to the Lycan elder. You ran this pack before Bella joined it. Ozas, I did. Venom, he thought of you as a pause, the stratum being accessed carefully, with something that is very clearly tenderness, as the closest thing to a father the war had left him. Ozas is very still. Venom, he wants you to know that what he became, what we are, is not a thing to grieve. It is a transformation. It is not a death. Beat, he says. Tell Ozas I can still run. It just looks different now. The fire is the only light. Soldiers from both sides sit at distances from each other that would have been impossible a day ago, and are not comfortable now, but are at least possible. The violence of the last hour has burned something out of the room, not the war, not 3 centuries of grievance, but the specific electric charge of imminent combat. What's left is the tiredness that comes after. Seleni sits with Ozas and Casimir at a fire in the center of the hall. Casimir, staring into the flames it held back in the courtyard when it could have. Seleni, I know. Casimir, I've been a death dealer for 50 years. I have never, he stops. I have fought things that were stronger than us. Things that were faster. Things that were older. I have never fought something that was stronger and faster and choosing not to finish it. Ozas, it's more frightening that way. Casimir, yes. Pause also more, he doesn't complete this sentence either. Seleni, more what? Casimir, quietly, reluctantly, like a man admitting something that goes against 50 years of professional identity, more. Full stop. Silence the fire. Ozas, what happens now? The creature is still evolving, still hungry. We have not solved the underlying problem, we've only managed tonight. Seleni, tonight is what we had. We work with what we have. She looks at the fire. Curran will want a full debrief. He will argue for deploying the archive weapons while the opening exists. Ozas. And the council on our side will argue that a vampire-Lycan alliance is more dangerous to Lycan sovereignty than the creature is. Casimir, dryly, both sides will be wrong in the same way. Ozas, and what way is that? Casimir, the way of people who think the most important thing in the room is the war they brought with them. A long silence. Then from outside the great hall, distant, barely audible over the wind from the hills, a sound. Low, resonant, not threatening. More like the sound a city makes when it exhales at 4 in the morning, when the people who live in the violent spaces between its foundations have, for one night, chosen not to be at war. Seleni listens to it. Seleni, VO 300 years. That's how long I've been a weapon in someone else's hands, convinced that the war I was fighting was the most important thing happening. Convinced that the monsters I was hunting were the problem and the people who sent me were the solution. Beat. Venom arrived from somewhere I can't name, crossed distances I can't calculate, and landed in the middle of the worst war on this side of the world. And within 6 weeks it had evolved past both species combined. Not out of malice, out of hunger, out of the logic of a predator in an ecosystem that runs entirely on violence. Beat, you want to know what the scariest thing about it is? It's not the wings, it's not the armor, it's not the speed. Beat, the scariest thing is that it looked at this war at 3 centuries of 2 species destroying each other in the dark, and it adapted to that environment perfectly, which means the environment produced it. We made the conditions for a creature like this. We made them carefully, over hundreds of years, and we called them civilization. Outside, Venom rises from the ruins of the outer wall on its new wings and drifts upward into the cloud cover, becoming invisible to the soldiers below. It moves north, toward the forest where the crater is still warm. Where the meteor left a scar, the earth hasn't decided how to heal yet. Venom, to itself, to Bella, to the stratum of a young man who wanted to run. We are not finished. Bella, from inside, no. Venom, but we are a pause, searching for the word across every language it has ever absorbed from every host on every world it has ever touched. Oriented. Bella, yeah. The quietest sound, relief, maybe, or the ghost of it, yeah, we are. The wings carry them higher. The city recedes. The war for tonight is very small below. Text card over black. Elder Curran opened the archive cabinet the following morning. He removed the resonance rounds. He held them for a long time, then he put them back. He told no one why. Aline didn't ask, she already knew. Some weapons, once you decide not to use them, change the person who decided. Curran had been changed. The war noticed. The war didn't know yet what to do about that. Vampire Coven Elder Council Chamber Night. The chamber exists for one purpose, the maintenance of power, not the exercise of it that happens in the war rooms and the field and the archive. Here, in this room with its black marble table and its 13 chairs of which 4 are currently occupied, power is maintained, polished, kept sharp, protected from the things that would dull it. Elder Voss has been sitting in his chair for 209 years. He has survived 6 coups, 3 purges, 2 attempted peace treaties, and the complete administrative collapse of the Coven's Western operations in 1943. He is not, by any stretch of any definition, a person who adapts to change willingly. He adapts to change the way old stone adapts to water, by making the water go around him slowly over centuries until the water gives up. Across the table, Elder Marta, Elder Sorin, and Elder Draga. Between them, the 4 oldest living vampires in this half of the world. Between them, 400 years of investment in a war that has, for the last 6 weeks, been developing in a direction they find deeply inconvenient. Elder Voss, Curran put back the resonance rounds. Elder Marta, he did. Elder Voss, after Castle Fekete, after he watched Seleni stand in a courtyard with a Lycan elder and address the creature as though it were a diplomatic problem rather than a weapon to be discharged. Elder Sorin, she called it an alliance. I have the field report. She used the word alliance in the presence of Lycan soldiers. Elder Voss, with the specific patience of someone who has been very angry for a very long time and has learned to keep it at room temperature. The creature is evolving past our ability to contain it. That is the narrative. That is what Seleni and Curran will present to the Coven. The creature is dangerous, yes, but managed, directed. A common enemy around which 2 ancient enemies have found common cause. He looks around the table. Does anyone in this room believe that narrative ends with the war continuing? Silence. Elder Draga. If the Lycans and the Coven find common cause, even temporarily, the power structure that has maintained our position for 3 centuries collapses. Elder Voss, the war is not incidental to our authority. The war is our authority. We protect the Coven from the Lycans. We are necessary because the threat is perpetual. Remove the war, he lets that sit for a moment, and ask yourself what we are. Elder Marta, quietly, old men in a dark room. Elder Voss, standing slowly, we retrieve the resonance rounds from the archive. We deploy them without Curran's authorization. We do this tonight while the creature is in the northern forest and while Seleni is still writing her debrief. We end it. We end the conversation about alliances, and we return to the war we understand. Beat any objection. The 4 elders look at each other across the black marble table. Nobody objects. Kirian's office same time. Curran is at his desk writing the most difficult report of his 400-year career when Petra comes in without knocking, which she has never done in 60 years of service, which tells him everything before she opens her mouth. Petra, the archive has been accessed. The resonance rounds are gone. Voss's seal on the requisition. Curran sets down his pen very carefully. Kirian, how long ago? Petra, 20 minutes. They'll be in the field in. Kirian, Seleni, where is she? Petra, still at the safe house, I think. He is already moving. The forest has been wrong since the crater. The trees that survived the impact have grown around it in a wide arc, not away from it, but toward it, branches leaning inward like an audience. The crater itself has been gradually filled with organic matter over 6 weeks, a slow accretion of the symbiote's residue building up in layers the way sediment builds in water, creating something that is neither soil nor stone nor purely organic, but a composite that pulses very faintly on warm nights. Venom is here because this is the closest thing it has to a home. Not home the way a den is home, not safety, not territory. Home the way a origin point is home, the place where the becoming started. It comes here between hunts, between the city's demands on its hunger, and it is quiet here in a way the city isn't. The city is always loud with the war, the underground tensions, the patrol rhythms, the specific frequency of a species on permanent alert. Here there is only the forest, old trees, the faint warmth of the crater. Bella, from inside, do you think about what would have happened if it hadn't been me, if you'd found someone else that night? Venom, we think about it. Bella and Venom, and we think that the host shapes the becoming as much as we do, a different whole. Scent and we are a different thing, more violent perhaps if the host was violent, more reckless. A pause with you, you wanted peace, even at the end. Silver burning through you in the dark, alone, and what you wanted was for the war to stop. That shaped us. Bella, I didn't think that was enough, wanting something. Venom, it is the beginning of enough. It is what made us capable of restraint when the hunger said otherwise. The white eyes look upward at the stars through the canopy. You gave us a conscience, Bella, in exchange for your body and your life. That is not nothing. Bella, quietly, no, I guess it isn't. The forest goes still the way forests go still when something changes. The small creatures sensing a vibration before it registers on any human or supernatural instrument. Venom raises its head. Venom, someone is coming, many armed. Bella, Seleni. Venom, reading the signatures, the body heat patterns, the chemical markers in the air, no. These are a pause, these are afraid. And the afraid ones who come armed in the dark are more dangerous than the confident ones. 12 death dealers move through the trees in 3 groups of 4. They are carrying weapons from the archive, not just resonance rounds but everything Voss authorized. High-frequency silver canisters, etheric seal detonators, ultraviolet cluster munitions designed for maximum dispersal in an enclosed space. Leading them, Commander ALDRIC, 60 years in service, not a political operative, genuinely and sincerely believing he has been given a righteous order by the highest authority in the coven. He checks his coordinate display and raises his fist. All 12 halt. ALDRIC, quiet target is in the crater zone, 70 meters ahead. Resonance rounds go first on my mark. Seal detonators on second wave. If it's still standing after 2 volleys, we use everything and we don't stop until the residue stops moving. He looks at his soldiers. This thing has killed 23 of ours, 6 weeks. Tonight it ends. The 12 soldiers move forward. Venom hears them at 40 meters and makes a decision in the span of a single heartbeat. It can run, it can fight, or it can hold. It holds. Bella, alarmed, what are you doing? Venom, waiting. Bella, they have archive weapons. I can smell the silver compound from here. That's not standard. Venom, I know what it is. Bella, then move. Venom, if we run, they follow. If we fight, we kill death dealers who were given orders by people who are afraid. And killing frightened soldiers doesn't solve the fear, it multiplies it. The white eyes watch the tree line. We hold. We let them see us holding. And we wait for. The first resonance round hits. The sound it makes is wrong, not a bang, not an impact, but a frequency, a wavelength tuned specifically to disrupt the kind of dense supernatural biology that Venom has been building for 6 weeks. It hits the symbiote mass like a bell being struck from the inside. The creature convulses. Not pain exactly. Nothing in Venom's catalog maps cleanly to pain, but disruption, the molecular structure of the outer armor vibrating at a rate that interferes with its coherence. It drops to one knee. The second round hits before it can recover. Then the third, fourth. The 12 soldiers advance in a coordinated arc, firing in rotation so there is no gap, no interval in which the symbiote can stabilize. Aldrich has studied the adaptation cycle reports, 72 hours per new stimulus. If they maintain continuous disruption, they prevent the adaptation from initializing. It's a sound tactical plan. Venom through the disruption, voice fracturing. Bella. Bella, I'm here, hold on. The fifth round hits the wing membrane. The crystalline structure fractures along its leading edge, not catastrophically, not irreparably, but damaged, which is something that has not happened to Venom in 4 weeks. The sensation of damage where there was no damage is disorienting in a way the creature hasn't accounted for. It falls forward, both hands on the crater floor. Aldrich raises his fist. The firing pauses. He walks forward into the clearing. 12 guns trained. He looks at the creature, enormous, armored, winged, and currently on its hands and knees in the dirt where 6 weeks ago a meteor fell, and he sees, perhaps for the first time, that the thing he was sent to destroy is not simply a weapon or a threat or a classification. It is a being, one that chose to hold rather than run. He raises his hand to signal the second wave. A figure steps out of the tree line behind him. Seleni, Aldrich, lower the weapons. Every soldier in the arc turns. Aldrich turns last. Aldric, carefully, Seleni, you're not authorized to be here. Seleni, neither are you. Voss didn't have council authorization for the archive withdrawal. Curran is filing the formal challenge right now. She walks forward into the clearing, past Aldrich's line, until she is standing between the 12 guns and the creature on its knees. This ends now. Lower the weapons. Aldric. Not lowering them. I have a direct order from an elder. Seleni, you have an order from 4 elders who are frightened of losing a war they've been profiting from for 3 centuries. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Those are not the same thing. You know the difference. 60 years of service and you know the difference. Beat, lower them. The clearing is very still. One by one, slowly, not happily, with the expressions of soldiers who will need a very long time to process what they've just been ordered to not do, the death dealers lower their weapons. Aldrich holds his up for 3 more seconds, then he lowers it. Aldric, quietly to Seleni, this isn't over. Seleni, I know. She turns to the creature behind her. Are you? Venom, from the ground, voice still fragmented from the disruption. We have been better. Seleni crouches beside it. The gesture is extraordinary. A death dealer kneeling next to something that could unmake her, doing it with the careful attention of a field medic rather than the wariness of a soldier. Seleni, the armor damage. Can you? Venom, it will repair, given time. The white eyes find hers. You came. Seleni, I said I would warn you. Venom, you did more than warn. Seleni, quietly, don't make it a thing. A sound in the symbiote mass that is absolutely, unmistakably Bella laughing. Northern Forest, 3 hours later. The death dealers have withdrawn. Aldrich filed his counter-report to Curran before he reached the tree line. The political fallout is going to be catastrophic and complicated, and will take months to resolve, and Seleni has decided to think about that tomorrow. Tonight she sits on the edge of the crater while Venom recovers beside her, quieter than she has seen it, the mass contracted and low, the damaged wing membrane folded flat. The forest around them is very still. The stars are extremely clear. Venom, they will not stop, the old ones. Seleni, no. Venom, they will send more soldiers, better weapons. They will study the resonance round's effect and refine the frequency. Beat, eventually they will find the threshold. Seleni, I know. Venom, then you know what the conclusion of this is. Seleni, I know what one conclusion is. She looks at the stars for a moment. There are others. Venom, tell us. Seleni, you need a host who cannot be separated from you by force. Not a dying Lycan in the dark, not someone who said yes before they understood the question. She pauses. You need someone who says yes knowing. Someone the Coven cannot dismiss, cannot file away, cannot send archive weapons against without political consequences they can't absorb. Beat, someone whose 3 centuries of service, and whose specific knowledge of every weapon in that archive makes her extraordinarily difficult to simply eliminate. The forest is completely silent. Venom, very slowly, Seleni. Seleni, I've been thinking about it since the cathedral, since you told me what Bella was when he agreed. She turns from the stars and looks at the creature beside her, this impossible, ancient, hungry, choosing thing. I've spent 300 years being someone else's weapon, Victor's weapon, the Coven's weapon, the war's weapon. I've killed things I was told to kill and protected people I was told to protect and believed in a version of the world that turned out to be built on slavery and lies. Beat, I'm tired of being aimed at things. I want to choose what I point at. Venom, if we bond, truly bond, not the emergency bonding that took Bella, you will not be entirely yourself. You will be us, both, always. Seleni, I know. Venom, the hunger will be part of you. Seleni, I know. Venom, you will become something the war has never seen. Something the elders have no category for, no weapon designed for, no precedent to manage. Seleni, the ghost of something fierce and exhausted, and absolutely decided, moving across her face, good. Venom, a very long silence, and inside it, Bella's voice from deep in the stratum saying simply, she's the one, we have one question. Seleni, ask it. Venom, Bella said yes because he was at the edge and we were warm. You are not at the edge. You are. The white eyes study her with an alien precision that sees things human and vampire instruments cannot. You are choosing, from a position of full understanding, knowing the cost. Seleni, yes. Venom, why? Seleni is quiet for a moment. The stars, the warm crater, the old trees leaning in. Seleni, because the war needs to end. Not just the battle, the war. The 3-century engine of it, the elders who feed on it, the cycles of violence it manufactures to justify itself. Someone needs to be the thing that's more frightening than the war. Someone needs to walk into that council chamber and be the consequence of 300 years of choosing violence over peace. Beat, and I know this war. I know its architecture. I know every exit, indeed every entrance and every weapon in every archive. She looks at the creature. You have the hunger and the evolution and the biology. I have the maps. The symbiote is very still. Then it opens, not violently, not consumingly, the way it took Bella in 3 seconds of desperate survival. It opens slowly. The way a door opens when someone on the other side has been waiting and finally hears the right knock. Venom, barely above silence. We will try to be gentle. We have not had practice at gentle. Seleni, standing, turning to face it fully. Neither have I. The bonding is not like the night of the crash. There is no violence in it, no convulsion, no scream swallowed by black mass. It is, and the soldiers who are watching from the tree line, who stayed when they should have withdrawn, who will describe this moment for the rest of their very long lives. It is like watching a tide come in. The symbiote moves across Seleni, the way water moves across stone, completely, without hurry, without force, finding every surface and covering it with the quiet certainty of something that has finally found the shape it was looking for. Seleni doesn't close her eyes. She watches the forest as it happens, the trees, the stars, the warm light from the crater, and feels it the way she imagines birth must feel if you were old enough and aware enough to experience it with full consciousness. The hunger arrives first, enormous and ancient, a thing that has crossed between stars and consumed species she has no names for, and it would be overwhelming except that it is immediately, recognizably, hers. It slots into the part of her that has been hungry for 300 years and called it purpose, and called it duty, and called it the war, and it fills that space perfectly. And what was hunger without direction becomes hunger with 3 centuries of precision behind it. Then the voices. Not just Bella, all of them. Every host the symbiote has ever carried, every stratum pressed flat in the alien memory. Dozens of them from worlds she will spend years learning the names of, all of them quiet now, watching, the way passengers watch a new driver take the wheel. And underneath all of them, close to the surface, warm and familiar even though she only knew him as a name, and a body in the dark of the forest north of Budapest. Bella, very gently, hey. Seleni, inside, for the first time speaking to the stratum rather than to the creature, hey. Bella, it's not as bad as it looks from the outside. Seleni, something that is both her dry humor and something older and stranger behind it. It looked extraordinary from the outside. Bella, smiling, she can feel the shape of it in the stratum, wait till you try the wings. She stands in the clearing. She is Seleni. She is also more than Seleni or differently Seleni, the way a river is differently water after it reaches the sea. Her coat has been replaced by something that is both armor and skin, black and crystalline and iridescent where the starlight catches it at certain angles. Her eyes, always silver, always the eyes of a death dealer born into a war, are silver still, but behind them now there are 2 white points, faint, like stars seen through cloud. She raises one hand and looks at it. The claws extend slowly, articulate with the precision that only Venom's fine motor control allows, and retract without her having to think about it. Her own reflexes and something vast and ancient, perfectly interfaced. She breathes, and the breath goes further than a single set of lungs. The Bella stratum rests quietly near the surface, content in a way it hasn't been since before the war took everything from him. Venom's Seleni, voice layered, her voice and the alien chorus behind it, but hers is the one on top. Hers is the one that leads, we are. A pause. Not for effect. A genuine pause, taking inventory, reading the new dimensions of the self. Venom's Seleni, we are Venom. The voice settles into itself, 300 years of a death dealer who has never once been afraid to say exactly what she means, and behind it the bottomless patience of something that has waited at the end of dying worlds. And now, we are eternal. The wings unfold. 40 feet, iridescent black against the stars. The soldiers at the tree line step back involuntarily, all of them, vampire and Lycan alike, and this is important. This is the first time in 3 centuries that a vampire and a Lycan soldier have stepped back from the same thing at the same moment in the same direction, which is to say, it is the first time in 3 centuries they have shared a response to the world rather than opposing ones. Seleni Venom rises. The Budapest hills fall away below. The city spreads out in its amber and gold, and the dark veins of the rivers and the old bridges and the forest roads, and somewhere beneath all of it, the tunnels where the war has lived for so long that the war stopped questioning whether it needed to exist. Venom/SE. Lene. VO, looking down at the city, Curran will call it a crisis. Voss will call it an abomination. Ozas will call it, I think Ozas will call it something quiet and true and not share it with anyone immediately, which is the most Ozas thing I can imagine. Beat, the war will call it a threat. Because that's what the war does with things that don't serve it. It classifies them as threats and sends weapons against them and waits to see if the weapons work. Beat, the weapons won't work. Not because we're invincible, because we know where every weapon is. We know the archive. We know the tunnels. We know the patrol schedules and the council politics and the 4 old men in a dark room who have been polishing their power for 2 centuries at the cost of everyone below them. Beat, we are going to be the most inconvenient thing that has ever happened to a war that thought it was permanent. She banks left. The wings catch the thermal rising from the city's warmth. She goes higher. Bella wanted to run towards something instead of away from it. He's been waiting 6 weeks to do that. Something warm and precise in the voice. The death dealer and the ancient thing and the young Lycan ghost, all 3, briefly, in the same syllable. We're going to give him that. We're going to run toward the end of this war and the morning on the other side of it, and whatever the species that survive it decide to build in the quiet. Beat, we don't know how long it takes. We have time. Beat, we are, after all. The wings spread wide. The city below. The stars above. 3 centuries of a soldier and 6 weeks of an alien and 23 years of a boy who just wanted peace. All of them together inside one black-armored figure hanging in the sky above a war that is about to discover that it picked the wrong enemy when it decided to send 12 soldiers with archive weapons into a northern forest on a clear night. Venom Seleni, Eternal. Final text card, white on black, slow fade in. The war lasted 11 more months. Elder Voss was found dissolved in his chambers in January. No weapon was recovered, no evidence of entry. The archive was empty the following morning, every weapon gone. Elder Curran resigned his position in February. He requested a meeting with Lycan Elder Ozas. The meeting lasted 14 hours. What they agreed to was not written down. It held anyway. The coven and the pacts did not make peace. Peace is a document, a ceremony, a thing that gets undone. What they made was something quieter. They made a habit of not killing each other. Slowly, imperfectly, with many failures, but they made it. Seleni was seen twice more in the following year. Once above the Buda Hills at dawn, something vast and winged catching the first light. Once in the northeastern district tunnels, where a patrol of young Lycans reported finding a section of wall that had been sealed with organic matter. Inside the sealed section, enough food and clean water to last a month. And on the wall, written in something black and permanent. You are not alone in the dark, V and S. Nobody knew what the V stood for. The Lycans did not tell them.